Hi there, welcome to Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Urbinary for the last episode of the season. I'm Tommaso and I've got Michela as my co-host for the episode.
Hello, everyone. A pleasure to be with you for this last episode, and welcome to Michelangelo as well.
For this episode, we have with us Michelangelo Fusi that will discuss with us a niche but relevant topic: the effect that national funds and calls dedicated to urban regeneration has on the population and the administration itself. We will look at the experience of an Italian middle-sized city, Brescia.
Michelangelo is a PhD student in the course of Civil Environmental Engineer, International Cooperation and Mathematics at the University of Brescia, focusing his research on urban planning and in particular on the effect that the planned Brescia's tramway will have on the city. He is looking in particular at the urban and social effect of this infrastructure on the cross neighbor. A stage with Brescia Mobilità, the municipal company devoted to the management of the transportation infrastructure and services of the city, is granting him the possibility to look closer at the development of the infrastructure. During his master thesis at Politecnico of Milan in urban planning and policies design, he devolved into the topic that we will discuss today and produce a thesis named A Call as an Opportunity of Renewal, the Case of Brescia and the Oltre la Strada project. That's going to be the starting point of the discussion today.
Urbinary.
After this short introduction to Michelangelo and the topic, let's get in the heat of the topic. Michelangelo, why did this topic spark your research interest? And why do you think it is a relevant topic in the urban field and in our everyday life?
Thank you for inviting me, Tommaso. I'm very happy to be here and have the opportunity to speak with you and your listeners. I consider the topic of my thesis very important for at least two reasons. The first is personal. The case study that I described in my thesis is a neighborhood of my city which I know very well and that I wanted to explore further. And the second reason concerns the topic itself. Indeed, urban regeneration may seem like a specialistic topic, but actually has a higher relevance to the people living in the district involved. In fact, the quality of the urban environment influences our everyday life.
Thank you, Michelangelo, for sharing your thoughts and really interesting point of view. I definitely agree with you. Actually, to motivate my enthusiasm about your answer, I think I need to specify my background and what my work experience are based on. I lived in Copenhagen for some years and worked in the urban design field, and this experience led me to increase my interest in urban regeneration with the main goal of planning livable urban spaces, and in particular, my approach is based on community involvement and human scale design. If we want to improve life in our city, we must understand human beings. And now I'm mentioning my guru, or what I consider my guru, Jan Gehl, which always says that we know more about the habitat of a Siberian tiger than the habitat of human being. What does it mean, habitat? Habitat is linked to habit, to habitation, and to habitable. It suggests a place worth living in, which has lasting qualities. That's what, as urban planner, we should always aim for. Now, you know why I agree with your answer, Michelangelo. Going back to our focus, why did you choose the city of Brescia as a case study?
The city of Brescia is an interesting case study for many reasons. I will try to summarize them. First of all, because Brescia is a medium-sized city. This is not obvious since in urban studies, mid-sized cities are less investigated than large metropolises, yet so many people live in those cities. And this is even more true in the Italian context. In fact, the medium-sized cities of the north constitute the most dynamic territory of the country. But even in these cities, there are situations of physical and social degradation that require intervention. And this is the case of the Via Milano district in Brescia, the neighborhood that I studied in my thesis.
Thanks a lot for summarizing your experience in some sentences to highlight the relevance of the topic, and we hope to have grabbed the attention of the listener for this dive in the theme and in the context of the city of Brescia. Nowadays, the renewal of entire pieces of cities left behind for multiple reasons is a hot and relevant topic that involves the people living in the area directly. It's also a topic with lights and shades, due to the risk of gentrification processes that could affect the areas after new attention from public and private investors involved in the regeneration processes. The Italian state some years ago started to shed lights on the peripheries of cities, giving ad hoc funds for their regeneration after many years in which they were left behind. This created a fertile soil for the resentment, anger, and social exclusion of the population living there. There is also now an important researchers that speaks directly about this and created this important topic of the left behind places. So the revenge of these left behind places, and this probably is a urban situation of this.
I want to add another consideration to what you just said, Tommaso. I would like to draw attention to the importance of such transformation for the citizen, particularly on how the municipality, through public intervention, can be supportive in these situations. You know that I like to talk about participation, and also in this case, I think it is very relevant to reflect on these. It is essential to collaborate with citizens to be able to plan in the best possible way in the interest of the society, creating sustainable solutions, also in terms of improving the health of the inhabitants and enhancing the sense of belonging and ownership. With the belief that the planning of democratic city is the best means to develop these issues. Sherry Ersten, in 1969, she wrote and published several papers that deals with the public participation in decision making, and among them, there is one called A Letter of Citizen Participation. A letter of citizen participation has several steps, as a normal letter is. The degree of citizen participation varies from the lower form of involvement information through consultation, dialogue, decision-making, until the highest degree of participation, which is achieved with co-governance and co-creation. The higher is the level of citizen involvement, the higher is the level of success of the project himself.
Michelangelo already told us about the reason that sparked his interest and the relevance of this topic. But what we want to hear from you now is how did you develop the team? Which were your main research questions? Which is the situation of Via Milano that brought the public interventions?
Oh, okay, thanks for the questions, Tommaso. I will start from the last one because it is better to start with a frame of the Via Milano context, which is a district located west of the historic center of Brescia, and as the name suggests, in ancient times it was the last stretch of the road connecting Brescia with Milan. Today it has the role of linking the western periphery of the city to the city center, and for these reasons many cars pass through it, and therefore it is considered as a place where people pass through instead of staying. But near the street there is a neighborhood which does not have its own name, but is identified with the street itself. So that's why I say every time Via Milano district, Via Milano neighborhood, etc. And okay, this is a district, how can I describe it? It is a place in which there is a strong identity and in which two very important issues for the city of Brescia overlap: immigration and deindustrialization. The neighborhood indeed is full of abandoned industrial areas and is one of the most multi-ethnic of the city. That's why Via Milano is known for being the poorest and the most degraded neighborhood in the city of Brescia. And for this reason, the municipality administration chose it as an area of which to intervene, allocating the money from the so-called Bando Periferie in 2016. And when I started working on my thesis in 2021, the construction works were already at a very advanced state. Only 5 years had passed since the national call. And this is a very fast time for the Italian context, because in Italy, public works very often suffer serious delays. Just to give to our listeners an example, think about the Metro Line 4 here in Milan, the so-called Blue Line. It was expected to open in 2015, but as we speak, in 2024, we are still waiting for its full completion. So, returning on the topic of my thesis, I asked myself, why are the construction works of Oltre la Strada progressing so quickly? What's the secret? It all started with this simple question. And to answer my question, I began to study Oltre la Strada in order to reconstruct the design process behind it. To do this, I read all the available documentation and did many interviews. And in this way, I realized that the reason of the success of the project lies in the stakeholder involvement. Each of them had specific needs that have been quickly translated into projects. Just to make an example, in the Via Milano neighborhood, there are many cultural associations that needed more spaces for their activities. This need led to design of a theater, and so on and so forth. And the positive aspect of Oltre la Strada, and I'm about to conclude, is that all these needs were coordinated by public management, by the municipality, turning individual projects into a strategic project for the whole neighborhood. In fact, a second reason for the success is to be found in the PGT, which is the general planning document of the municipality. The plan already outlined the strategies to be pursued. The national call was just the opportunity to implement it.
Thanks, Michelangelo, for sharing your research path through this topic. Reading your work and remembering what you were explaining to us before the recording of the episode, what really amazed me was the effect that the participation in this national call for project had on the municipality of Brescia. How do you think that the municipality's office were affected? Do you think that the participation process with all the correlated procedures sparked a change in how the administration operates?
Participating in a national call certainly brought a change in mental approach, as many stakeholders told me. This change occurred in technicians and civil servants who learned how to apply the national calls, but also among the political class that understood the impossibility for the city of carrying out big projects with its own forces. I'll give just one example. The Brescia Light Metro, opened 10 years ago, was built largely with a loan taken from the municipality. But the new tram line, which I'm studying today, whose construction site will open next year, was instead financed entirely through a national call from the Ministry of Transportation. So, the city has developed a new approach. The municipality decided strategies and plans, and when the opportunity for a national call arises, it participates in the call. This is exactly what was done with the tram. First, they developed the plan, the strategy to implement a new transportation system. Then they participated to the call from the Ministry of Transportation. However, this approach has a weak point, and it concerns participation, which you mentioned before and which Michela mentioned before. National calls require very short deadlines, making participation process really difficult, if not impossible, which instead take times. And this was told me by many stakeholders I interviewed.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think going back to the letter of participation, information, therefore, is the lower and first step of involvement, which is also important and sometimes taken for guarantee. And for this project, this phase was certainly taken care of by the administration. But the time, as you were saying, was very short to develop the project himself. So one more question for you, Michelangelo. In the current state of implementation of the project, how effective do you think it is? And do you think the problem of gentrification is on the horizon?
Okay, I will start to reply from the first question you made me. So, about the implementation stage of the project. Well, today the project has been largely completed, but the works of two fundamental projects are still open. I'm talking about an ambulatory and a theater that I mentioned you before, which in my opinion is the most important part of all Oltre la Strada project. And when they will open, they will provide really important services to the neighborhood that today are absent. Anyway, we will begin to see the effects of the urban regeneration projects in 10 years, I think, not less. We will also see if there will be gentrification effects, as you mentioned in your questions, because Okay, gentrification is a never-present risk when so much money is invested in a very degraded area. And the administration is aware of the problem and, in fact, has invested in social housing in the neighborhood. Oltre la Strada project include some actions about the topic of social housing. But in my opinion, further action is needed on this front. We will see.
So, Michelangelo, let's imagine taking a walk in Via Milano in 10, 15 years. How will you describe it? What are the positive and negative effects of urban regeneration that you foresee in the future? And who do you imagine will be the future inhabitants of Via Milano?
I forgot my crystal ball at home, but I can still try to answer you. So, walking through the streets of Via Milano, or the street of Via Milano, because it's, as I say, the one street in 10 years, I think we will see a busy street as today, but busy in a different way. The new theater will attract visitors, and so new bars and restaurants will open. And the street will be frequented by people from the cultural world. And the street will be one of the main centers of the city cultural life. And all of these will be certainly visible. For example, during the spring and summer, there will be many outdoor events and activities. And many young and creative people will live in because they will think that living in Via Milano, it's cool. Maybe the street will also have its own logo or name or slogan, which will express the new identity. I'm thinking something like Nolo here in Milan to express the area north of Loreto. Nevertheless, traces of the old identity will still be present, I think. For example, between a restaurant and a fancy bar, we will still find a kebab shop, but most of the activities will be replaced. And for sure, all of this will be certainly positive, but as a result of the process, which we urban planners call gentrification, the process that you mentioned before, I think many people will be displaced into new areas of the city, or maybe outside the city, in the province.
Urbinary.
So, Michelangelo, as last question, as a young researcher in urban planning, what type of researchers or planner do you aspire to be?
But whether I'll be a professional or a researcher, I aspire to be able to contribute to improving people's lives by improving the spaces in which people live and improving the ways in which people move. Many responsibilities, but also many satisfactions.
Yeah, you're right. It's a big topic and it's a big challenge.
Urbinary.
Thanks for joining us today and for the small journey through this topic and the city of Brescia, Michelangelo. We've reached the end of our second season, and we genuinely hope you enjoyed our conversation and gained a deeper understanding of urban planning. Our goal was to explore this subject through a less formal language, as it can be challenging for citizens to grasp. Urban planning is often involved in formal and academic jargon, limiting the potential for engaging conversation among everyone who could benefit from the subject. With this in mind, we aim to provide a more accessible form of interaction. We hope we succeeded. We are already hard at work on our next season. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, Tommaso, for inviting me, and it's been a pleasure to participate in this podcast as a co-host. And I hope I brought on the table some questions and reflections that might lead to more questions and more answers, even after reading this episode. Bye.
Thanks for the invitation, and bye.
Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.